Hello everybody, hello and welcome to another recipe here in my kitchen at home. Thank you for joining us again. So we've got Paul, Katie is being admin today, so thank you Katie very much for that, and Katie will be with you tomorrow with a really lovely recipe. And so after the show today I will share all the details of tomorrow's recipe with Katie, including all of the ingredients, so you guys can cook along to that one if you want to. I know a few of you are cooking along today. So hello to Colleen and Justine and Debbie and Jenny. Jenny is joining on her lunch break. Nicholas, thank you for joining me. Louise, good morning from NYC, and she says good afternoon UK chefs. That's very precise. I love it. Amandine, welcome back. Annie says hi Chef Day. Sorry, just letting you know I'm cooking along today. Good. Oh, and Patricia is also cooking along. Oh, we've got quite a few of you cooking along today. That's great. Catherine, Sue, George, Tor, welcome. Okay, so Justina says I'll be cooking along later. I have company. Sounds ominous. Or is that one of your little fur babies that is keeping you company? Hence you not being able to cook because you got your hands full with one of your fur babies. And I must say, you all did so well in sharing pictures of all of those lovely animals in your life. So thank you so much for that. We did have like a few surprising additions. We did have an albino snake in the mix, which was he's a handsome boy, but apparently a bit bitey. So yes. Okay, so Catherine has actually asked a really good question. Do I need less tamari if I use smoked tofu? Well, smoked tofu does have more flavour, so I could see why you would suggest that, but really, like, it's a matter of taste. It is a matter of taste. And also it depends on your smoked tofu. Some of them are more like smoked around the outside. If it's got a really like deep smoky flavour on the inside, then yeah, I think I would use less tamari. So the first lot of tamari that we'll use will be to get flavour inside the tofu, and then the second lot of tamari that we'll use to make the actual satay will be for a paste that goes on the outside of it. So Karen, morning. Gloria, thank you for joining us again. Annie said, quick question, should my oven be at 180 degrees as it's fan? Yes, absolutely. So if you've got a fan oven, then basically you take the Celsius amount that we've given you and you reduce it by around 20%. Okay, right, so oh, Denise, your apron arrived. Awesome. Okay, so Colleen, that means that yours should not be too far away. I'm sorry it's taken so long. It's taken so long to get to people in America. But you know, the post system has gone a bit crazy. So I'm really glad that you have received yours. If you fancy taking a photo of yourself and put it in the community hub, that would be amazing. I love seeing you guys in our aprons. It's really lovely. Okay, so on to today's recipe, and I will show you guys a picture of what it will look like in the end. Well, it will look like an approximation of this. But as you can see, we've got some spring onion on the top there as the garnish, but I have specified in our ingredients list that you don't have to use spring onion. You can just use sesame seeds if you want. So I'm going to be using sesame seeds today. And in the picture, you will see I have used little tiny round shallots. I know that they're not necessarily that easy to get hold of, so we do have a swap for that, which is, and I'll bring you over here, which is our red onions. So I just got some smallish red onions. I tried to pick out the smallest ones that I could. And so we're going to use these today instead of our shallots. Okay, so Denise says we'll take a picture of the apron. Good. Colleen, I'm cooking along, but we'll do the actual cooking later. I'm assuming it's okay to make this now and have it marinate. Yes, absolutely, that's no problem at all. Patricia says I can't touch my oven for now, as I have to wait 10 minutes before I can open it. I have aquafaba meringues in it. Well, priorities. Meringues come first, babe. Khan says, Chef Day and others, thank you for all being there. Any suggestions for puns or jokes? Ah, I don't know. You guys, can you guys suggest a theme for today's puns and jokes? I mean, I think we've already done onions, haven't we? I'm pretty sure we've already done onions. Lara, thank you for joining us. Okay, so on to today's recipe, and we'll start with the tofu. So this is the tofu that I'm using today. I kept out the box so that I could show you guys. This brand is, I think, very quickly becoming the UK's favourite brand of tofu. So it's organic, which is great, and it is available in so many supermarkets here, which is also awesome. And it's not very expensive. It's not very expensive at all. But one of the things that I do really, really like about it, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you specifically the make that I was using, is because the tofu that they produce is very, very, very firm. So you don't need to press it. You don't need to press it at all. So I think it was Colleen was asking me earlier if she needed to press her tofu. So if your tofu has a lot of water in it, then do press it. But if it's like this one, then you really, really don't need to. So like a tiny amount of water has come out of it, but that's it. That is it. And Sue has just said, is it all our chefs at the end of the rainbow? Actually, it's not. It's not. So you might have to like guess again. Give you a bit more of a close up. There we go. That's enough of a close up. Okay, so if you guys are cooking along, you do need to press your tofu. You can do that just between a couple of chopping boards. So you can wrap your tofu in a clean tea towel, put it between two chopping boards, and then I actually put elastic bands around them to hold it in place. I don't like the method of putting tins on top of them because it can end in disaster, basically. So you can do it that way, or of course you can use a tofu press if you have one. Okay, so let's start by cutting our tofu. I'll just move all of our veggies off to one side. Justine also says, is that all the chefs underneath the rainbow? Actually, it's not. It's not. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this into pieces, but we have to bear in mind that oh, Sue says, is it us from around the world? Kind of. Yeah, kind of. In fact, I'm going to come over here and show you guys. So this is, there we go, the Vegan Chef School community. So this is all of you guys. I mean, I couldn't draw you all. It's representative of all of you guys. And so this is our rainbow coming down, which has all of you guys at the end of our rainbow. But also we've got rainbows coming off you, because I think that community is really, really, really so important. And you know, it's these like rainbows that come from the community that are so amazing, really, really like so amazing. And so I think community when you're vegan is so important, because you can kind of feel a bit alone if you're surrounded by people who aren't vegan and who don't have like similar beliefs to you. So I think that community is key in enjoying being vegan and staying vegan. So that's my rainbow for today. Got a bit soppy with that one, I'm sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, with our tofu, we need to make sure that the size that we cut it means that it won't split when it goes onto our skewer. Okay, so we do need to bear that in mind. And you do also need to make sure that you've got firm tofu or even extra firm tofu. Yes, yeah, so do make sure that you have this extra firm tofu, and we don't cut it too small. So I'll start cutting it and then I'll show you what size I cut it. My skewers are quite thick. Don't know if you can see that. They are actually quite thick, so I do have to be careful when I'm putting stuff on them that they don't split and break apart and just fall off. So Colleen mentioned that tofu blocks in the US are big. So sometimes like 390 to 400 grams. Yeah. I mean, it depends. You know, in some Asian supermarkets in the UK, we have the same thing. We have like really massive blocks. But in the supermarkets, we tend to get these like smaller blocks, even smaller than this actually. And so that's why I've started putting the gram amount as well. So whenever we use tofu, we'll add the gram amount. So as I said, I don't want to make these into really small bits. So I'm just going to really go carefully and just really take my time with it and make sure that I'm certain of how, yeah, that's going to be fine. And really be certain about how big it's going to be before I make that cut. So I think, yeah, these are going to be all right. There we go. Because you can cut them, but you can't sit them back together. Okay. Okay, Colleen said, question, do you soak your skews before so they don't burn? I used to, and then I did this recipe a few times and it was nowhere near burning. It was nowhere near burning. But you can, if you want to make doubly sure that they're going to be okay. So you can just soak them in hot water for 10 minutes. But these ones that I've been using, we use them at the school as well, have been absolutely fine, so I actually stopped doing it. But if you want to, then yes, you can do that. Because we will only be putting them in the oven for around 20 minutes. So they seem to be okay. But that's with these ones. So, you know, you might have ones that are drier than mine. So yeah, you might want to do that just in case. Okay, so we've got our tofu bits here, and I'll show you how big they are. Oh, there we go. There you are. So they're fairly big. You can see that in comparison to my hand. And so now we can make the marinade, and this is just a really, really quick and simple marinade. We're going to use a Tupperware box here, just because I want to show you like the Tupperware box method. And actually, I'll get this pan onto. So guys who are cooking along at home, you will need a pan of water because we are going to briefly cook our onions or our shallots, whatever it is that everyone's using. So I just need to get this pan of water to the boil. So we'll do that whilst I'm telling you about my Tupperware box. So you don't have to use a Tupperware box. You can use just a bowl. That's absolutely fine, but I want to show you this method because it's just really, really easy. Oh, and I have to say hello to a few people. Francesca, welcome, and Damian, lovely name, and Riadi. Good evening from, is that Poland? That is Poland, yes. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put my marinade in here. Really, really, really simple marinade. So, sorry, let me just double check. So we'll add the first lot of tamari, which is our 2 tablespoons of tamari. There we go. So I've got my bottle here, and just to make it a bit easier for myself, I'm going to take this plastic bit off. And then that will just make it a lot easier to pour. So we'll have 2 tablespoons of tamari in here. There we go. I'm going to put that to one side because we will be using it again. And then we've got our sesame oil. And again, I'm just taking that little plastic bit off. But if you guys do use it just for like sprinkling on, you know, into dishes, then do remember to put it back. I've done that on occasion and it does end in disaster. So 1 tablespoon of our sesame oil, our toasted sesame oil in there. Okay, so we'll just give this a bit of a stir, just to break apart that oil, get it mixed in with the tamari. There we go. And I'll just pop my tofu into here. There we go. Okay, so once that's in there, we can pop the lid on. And if you are going to use this method, then you do need a Tupperware box that is very, very sealed. Okay, very, 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 very sealed, right? Okay, so now we're going to mix it all up. And so this is just a really, really quick and easy way of getting the tofu completely covered in our marinade. Yeah? So you can just leave it on the side whilst we're doing everything else. And if you see that, you know, all the marinade is really, really going to the bottom and the top looks a bit, you know, not marinated, basically, then you can just turn it upside down and leave it like that. And we know that it isn't going to fall out the sides because we've got one of these, like, you know, really good, really good. Sorry, I'm laughing at Amandine's comment. Yes, exactly, exactly. We know that this is like fully sealed. Nothing is going to drip out of it, okay? So we can now put this to one side whilst we go on to the next stage of the recipe. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to pop our shallots or our red onions, whatever you are using, into our pan. So my pan is nearly at boiling point now. It only needs a few minutes, so, you know, around like 4 or 5 minutes, something like that, just so that they're not raw in the middle. They are obviously going to get cooked again. There we go. I'm going to leave that lid off because this is really, there we go. This is very, very, very high powered, so I'm just going to turn it down a little bit so it doesn't bubble over. So we'll leave that for about 5 minutes. Yeah, just to take off that like raw edge of it. Okay, so whilst that is doing its thing, then we can make our marinade. So I have a jug here and a fork. The fork is really, really gonna come in handy. So to make the marinade, we simply need to mix the rest of the ingredients together. So we have the tamari, and now I have said 3 tablespoons of tamari, but that's because it really, really depends on the strength of your tamari. I'm only going to use 1 tablespoon of tamari, and that's because mine is really quite strong. And also I just don't want it to be that salty, but it's really, really up to you. So let's just bring it over here. Okay, so with a lot of these recipes, you know, sometimes we do say, you know, it's like 1 to 3 tablespoons. Sorry, I should have added that to the ingredients list there, but it's 1 to 3 tablespoons. Quite often in school, when we would give students like 3 tablespoons and say you can add less if you want, you know, you've got to kind of got to guide that. A lot of people would just pour the whole thing in. So don't do that, please. Don't do that. Let's start with 1 tablespoon. See how you get on, and then if you need to add more of the tamari, add more of the tamari. Okay, so I'll bring you guys over here and you can see me making mine. So here I've got my tamari. So just 1 tablespoon of that. Now some tamari can actually have like quite a high water content. Same with soy sauce as well. And then, you know, it's not going to have anywhere near as much flavour as other tamari. And then we've got our juice of 1 lime. So I always cut them down this way, lengthways. There we go. And then I'll just pop that in. So I'm just going to get up the live, see if we've got any questions. Apparently the subtitles are hilarious. Yes, they can be. They can be. Karen says she's trying to work out what date the 100th show will be. It's the 2nd of July. It is the 2nd of July. So, yes, we are going to have a break. We're going to have like a short intermission of about a week, and then we'll be back on the 9th. And from the 9th, we'll do Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There we go. Okay, so, and actually, just to kind of clarify that for you guys, there we go. So we will be carrying on. We just need to go and, you know, have a bit of a nap for a while. So, Karen said thank you. No problem at all. Happy to help. Okay, so nearly done all of these limes. Just got the last quarter to do, and then I can drain. Our onions. Okay. There we go. So I'll just go and take these over to the sink. There we go, and we'll turn off this annoying thing. Just start getting a bit beepy. Don't need you anymore. Okay. So, if anybody's cooking along at home, make sure you have your tamari, just 1 tablespoon to start with, and then all of your lime juice in there. I'm just going to grab our onions. Forgot what they were called then. There we go. Okay, guys, sorry about that. Right, there are our onions. And sorry, one thing that I should have said to you, which I didn't at the start, about the way that I had cut my onions. So I cut my onions so that the end was still intact. Okay, so if you guys are using like big onions, we're going to need to make them smaller so that they cook through properly, but you need to make sure that they are still intact. So, so you do need to make sure that that little stem bit is still there, okay? So I actually just cut them into quarters with these. Okay, Colleen said my lime came to 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon. Yes, I mean, they can differ slightly, but the juice of 1 lime is usually fine. Okay, so Khan said, I caught my mum going through the vegan chef school website. I am intrigued. I am too. That's great. That's great. We're bringing her over to the light side. Okay, right. So, sorry, I'm really getting distracted now. So we will continue making our dressing, our marinade. So we now need to add our garlic. So you've got some options with garlic. So either you can put it into a pestle and mortar, so chop it, put it in a pestle and mortar, give it a good pound, add a bit of salt if you're doing that, just so that it doesn't slip everywhere. But I am going to use my microplane, so you can use a fine grater as well if you want. So this is a really good and quick way of making garlic into a puree, essentially. And this is, the amount is up to you, you know, so I've given you guidance of 1 garlic clove, but it's completely up to you if you want to add more. Okay, so just pop that into the marinade. There we go, and then we've got our bird's eye chili. So we just want to cut that really as finely as we can, Okay, so okay, sorry, I was just reading your comments, see if I missed anything. There we go. So really, I try to get the first slice as fine as I can, because if you start off with it very fine, then it just makes life a lot easier. But I'm going to really chop this a lot, guys, so you'll have to bear with me, but you know, some things are really worth it. So really get this as fine as we can. Right, there we go. And again, that's a choose your own adventure ingredient, because you know you might like lots of chili heat, you might not like much at all. So we'll just put that in there. There we go. Okay, and now for our peanut butter. So if you guys want to use other nut butters, that's absolutely fine. It will still taste really lovely, but of course, you know, satay is traditionally uses peanut butter. So 2 tablespoons of our peanut butter, and this one is nice and soft as well. But this is actually a good way of using up, you know, those bits at the end of some of the peanut butters that is really dry. You know, you could save that for a satay recipe, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the wet stuff, because we're adding wet stuff already, you know, with the tamari and the lime juice and such. So okay, because of course, you know, we never want to waste that, but it isn't that pleasant to eat, you know, just on toast or crackers or whatever. Okay, so we've got our peanut butter in here, but this is going to be a bit difficult to mush in. I don't know if you can see that, because, you know, peanut butter is like pretty much all oil. So it just needs a bit of coercing, and that is why I'm using a fork. And I hope that you can see and notice that I've got a particular method to mixing it in. We just need to be a bit patient with this. Think of it as like kitchen therapy, kitchen meditation. We're mixing it in. Takes a bit of time. Just focus on this. You don't have to focus on anything else that is going on. Just this. There we go. And eventually it will all come together. But I purposefully chose a nice big fork for that as well, because I've got some really cute little ones, but not so good for doing this. Okay, there we go. So, oh, Catherine said that she's cooking long, but she ran out of skewers. You don't necessarily have to have it on skewers. It tastes just as nice without it. But, you know, if you want to kind of like pick them up, I know that some people really like eating like that. And Karen says, can we use almond butter instead of satay? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can. It will taste just as nice. It will just be like an almond satay. And Justine says, what happened to the jokes? Justine? Okay, right. In that case, Justine is responsible for all jokes in the show from here on in. Okay? So, okay, right. So now I'm going to give this a taste. Wow. And just see if I want to add any more tamari. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit more. So for anybody who is cooking along at home, now is the time to see if you do need to add any more tamari. But I'm going to add it really slowly, so just half a tablespoon at a time, and then taste it. And guys, this is like really something that is good for you to get into the hang of doing, is tasting your food as you make it, because you know all of the ingredients that we've been putting into this marinade, well, they can differ. They'll differ from brand to brand, they'll differ from country to country. So you do need to get into the habit of tasting it and thinking, you know, do I want to change that? That's better. That is much better. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to add in any more. This tamari is actually like pretty good. It's 46% soybeans, and the rest of it is water. So it is actually more water than soybeans, but there is some tamari. I can't remember the make of it, but it is really, really far more watery than this, so you don't get much flavour out of it. So, you know, if I was going to use one of those, I would put more tamari in it. But guys, do give it a taste, see what you think. Okay, so now that is our marinade. Okay, so if anybody is cooking along at home, do let us know how you're getting along, because we'd really like to know. Okay, so now we've got our marinade. We can mix the onions that we have, or the shallots, whatever it is that you guys are using, and our tofu as well. So let's just grab grab all of the things that we need, get rid of the things that we don't need. There we go. And guys, if you have these left over, the skin of the lime, you can actually pop these into the freezer and use them as lime flavoured ice cubes, which I've been doing in water or sparkling water or something like that. So just pop them into the freezer as they are, and once they're frozen, just pop them into your drink. So it's a good way to get a little bit more out of them. And of course you can zest these. You could zest these. So if you want even more lime flavour in this, you could zest them. There might be like a slight bitter edge to it, but to be honest, we've got loads of other flavours going on here, so I don't think you would notice that bitterness. Okay, so now we want to mix all of these together. So we want to make sure that our tofu is covered as much as possible in our satay, and also our red onion as well. So I'm going to get a nice big bowl to mix this in, because it's going to be really, really difficult to mix anything in here. This isn't that big, and also this isn't either. So let's get a nice big bowl for that. Actually, pasta bowl is really, really good for mixing things like this, because it's not too deep. It's more shallow. So that's a really, really good option for you guys to use. So let's just grab our tofu, put it into our bowl. This is going to get messy, by the way, guys. I hope you know that. I hope you realise it's not going to be one of those like really nice and clean ones. It is going to get a bit messy. Right, there we go. And we can reserve this as well. Any kind of marinade like this, it is good to reserve it, and we can come up with a way of using it, definitely. Okay. So I'm just seeing if you... Anne said my onions are in bits. Oh no! Were they the frozen ones? Because I know like a few of you guys were asking whether you could use frozen onions, which isn't something that I've ever really used. So I don't know. Like I'm guessing that they're already chopped. Is that right? Okay. Right. So we'll just add our onions to the bowl, and now we can add our marinade. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop, we've got this little bit left over, I'm going to pop that into there and mix it in, just so that we're not wasting it. There we go. But with you guys, your tofu may have soaked up all of that marinade. There we go. Now we can pop this over our onions and our tofu. And just get that last bit out there with a spoon. Make sure that we don't leave any behind. Right, there we go. Oh, Annie said that she chopped the ends off before you mentioned not to. Okay, well in that case, what you can do, Annie, is that you can restack them, like if you can get them into, this sort of shape, and then when you put the skewer through, you can put the skewer through there, kind of like essentially like holding them all together, which is what I'm going to do anyway. It's just that this is a bit of insurance. Yeah, so you can do it like that. And so now we just gently, very gently, because we don't want these onions falling apart, we mix our marinade into our tofu and our lovely red onions. So you could also use, like the pickling onions that you get. There's like small ones, before they're pickled, I mean. You get them in massive bags sometimes for not a lot of money. So you could use those for this recipe. Absolutely, absolutely. Even spring onions. Spring onions would be lovely. Really lovely. Okay, so now is completely covered with this marinade. I'm going to get my baking tray so that that is ready and good to go. So just move some of these out of the way. Okay. Here we go. So with our tray, we want to make sure that we have big tray. So we don't want to crowd it at all. And oh, sorry, Colleen said, since I'm cooking mine later, should I wait to do this step? Yeah. So if you want to just get to this stage and just leave it as it is, you know, pop it in the fridge, put a cover on it, so it doesn't make your whole fridge smell of satay and onions. Yes, and then get back to it later. Okay. Annie says, I'm not worried about it. It will be fine. Good. I'm glad. That's the chef spirit that we want to see, Annie. Okay, so now we can start making up our skewers. So you should be able to make like around like maybe 6 skewers, but it does depend on how big you cut your tofu, because you know I can't guarantee that yours is going to be exactly the same size as mine, but it's, you know, roughly around like 6 skewers you'll get out of it. Colleen says, I meant the second marinade. Yes, so once you put the second marinade on, then you can stop. So you want to do everything basically up to the point of cooking it. Okay, so now when we are putting our skewer through our tofu, we need to think about which side would mean that it's less likely to break. Okay, and so if we put it through this thinner side here, sorry, let me hold this up to you. If we put it through this thinner side here, put it through there, for example, or there, it's going to be much more likely to break than if I put it through here. Okay, so I'm going to put it through here, but I'm not just going to force it through, I'm going to twist it. And I think you guys saw me do this with our mushrooms. Yes, that was it, our mushrooms. My lovely mushroom skewers, they were delightful. Oh my god, they did not last long in this house. Justine said, why did the tofu cross the road? To prove it wasn't a chicken. And Khan says veganism is sinful because it's satanic worship. Lisa, thank you for joining us. Off to work today. So, 7:30. Blimey. Okay, so I'm probably going a little bit too slow there because I'm reading your comments at the same time. It doesn't take that long to make these. Jesus, we'll be there all day. No. Okay, and then we've got our onion, and as I said, it's going to get messy. But as I also said when I was mainly talking to Annie earlier about the way that we put the skewer through the onion. So I'm going right through the widest part there. And again, just giving it a little turn, a little twist. There we go. And alternating them. So again, just going through that widest part. And this is why we use extra firm tofu if we can get a hold of it for this recipe. Because, you know, tofu, just like people, comes in all shapes and sizes. You know, some of it can be more delicate and more spongy, and some of it, even though they're all firm tofu, they will be slightly different. But actually, I think that's one of the great things about tofu, because it means that I can I purposefully use different brands of tofu for different things. So, you know, sometimes like with old clients that they have requested something like, you know, like a salt and pepper tofu, or, you know, something that's reminiscent, very reminiscent of meat. You know, they want something like with that like real meaty texture, and therefore, you know, I'll pick like certain types of tofu that can really get very chewy. There you go. And then sometimes you'll want one that's a bit more crumbly. Okay. So we're just doing these in alternates. I'm going to do like 5 because that's looks good with the amount of stuff that I've got. Okay. And if you guys want to mix this up, it would be lovely to put peppers on this. Really lovely. So just use this as like your base, and then please do feel like you can freestyle. Absolutely, you can freestyle. So if you've got any suggestions of what else you would like to put on our skewers, then do let me know. Maybe you've got some really controversial ideas like pineapple. Wow. Okay, so again, just being really careful to put it through the widest part possible. If it feels like it's going to break, then do twist it, twist and push. There we go. Louise says, do you ever freeze tofu for a different texture? Yes. Yes, I do. I do. Because it does come up quite spongy. So particularly if you want lots of marinade to get right on the inside, then you could do that. Because it makes it more spongy, it means that it can soak up more marinade. So say for example, if you're doing something like a tofu steak, you know, like a big piece, like a more like a fillet type thing, you know, to get more flavour on the inside, then you could freeze it first. Okay, so Justine has said a very good joke. She says, pineapple pizza. I'm assuming that's a joke because it's disgusting. So, George says red peppers would do well here, I think. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Let me bring you guys back so that you can see me a bit more. Okay, right, so this is just about done, so I'm going to pop this into the oven. I've only done 3 here because I'm going to leave the rest for later on, but you guys who are cooking along at home, feel free to make all of them up. But you don't need to see me repeat that. But yes, George, I think red peppers would be really, really lovely. Aubergine, but I would say cook the aubergine first, because one of the bad things about aubergine, eggplant, that people don't like is when it's undercooked and it's a bit rubbery. But I think it would be really, really nice with this recipe. Mushrooms as well. Mushrooms would be really, really lovely with it. So there's a lot of options there. Justine says, how do you not like pineapple pizza? I can't be the only one here. Come on. Come on, people. Khan says, a carnivore and a herbivore were in a fight. The carnivore ate the herbivore and said there wasn't much meat on it. Okay, right. So, guys, I am going to put this in the oven now. 200 degrees Celsius, 390 degrees Fahrenheit, gas mark 6. If you've got a fan oven, slightly lower. But to be honest, even if it's a bit too high, that's okay with this recipe. It does, you know, it is okay. So we can actually put it at the top of the oven. That's absolutely fine. We do need to keep an eye on it. And if you guys have any of this sauce left over, then you can also baste it in the sauce. So it depends. You know, one of the things that we can't factor in is, you know, how thick your peanut butter is going to be. So sometimes it can be a bit thinner than this, and then it can kind of like drip off. And if you've had to add more tamari because your tamari isn't too flavoursome, then you know, it might drip off. And so if it is a bit too thin, your sauce, your marinade, then you can just take parts of this during the cooking process and you can baste it. You can baste it whilst it's cooking. Okay, so that there is that option if you do find yourself with quite a thin marinade. So we'll just pop this in the oven now. As I said, it's going to go at the top. And yeah, so around like 20 minutes, something like that, and then it will really, really start to crisp up. Let's bring you back to the picture so that you can see. So you can see that this is charred, like it's almost burnt. It's almost burnt, which is fine. We're using tamari or soya sauce. Soya sauce and tamari will always burn quite quickly. They really will. They're just like one of those ingredients. So I don't know if you guys have found that when you're making something like a stir fry, and it will burn and caramelize very, very quickly, very, very quickly. So you do need to be aware of that. And you know, I did turn these over a couple of times, so I cooked them on both sides. I did cook them on both sides just to get like nice crispiness around them as much as possible. Okay, so whilst they're in the oven, we might actually get to see them cooked a little bit, but I'll just see if you guys have any more questions for me. Brittany says, I love pineapple on pizza, and it'd be great to include these skewers. Ugh. Okay, well, I am happy to be proved wrong, because I think that quite often people think that they don't like something, but we can always like make it in a different way, and they will actually like it. So if you guys invite me over to dinner, I will be completely prepared to eat your pineapple satay skewers. I'm sure they'll be lovely. Just give me G&T with it, okay? And let me just see if we've got any more questions. Oh, sorry, Colleen said, unrelated mushroom question. I have about 400 grams of mushrooms that I need to cook today. What mushrooms aside from the burgers are not too mushroomy? Okay, so first of all, you can actually freeze mushrooms. So if you want to do that, then that is absolutely an option. Mushroom, yeah. Oh, sorry, Colleen mentioned minced bolognese. Yes. So you actually answered your own question, babe. That's brilliant. But I would say out of all of the recipes that we've done, probably the bolognese is a way to make it not mushroomy, if that is what you know, a real like thing for you. You could also use the burger recipe to make meatballs too. So that's another option. Do remember as well that the mushroom burgers, and also meatballs, you know, if you make you use exactly the same recipe but just form them into balls, freeze really, really well. So, you know, if it's something that you don't want to eat straight away, then you can do that as well. Justine says, message me about the SCOBY. Yeah, Justine, it's fine. I've already got your address. So now I'm basically working out how can I post a SCOBY to you and it won't leak over everyone's posts. So I'm just in the process of working that out, so bear with me. But you will receive it soon. Actually, you're a postie. Like, so if you've got any advice, then please let me know. Justine says that she thinks it's chefs that don't like pineapple pizza. No, I think it's like 90% of the world. Ariel says, how would we cook the eggplant first to include them? You could chop them into chunks, again, big chunks, and also bigger than you think that you're going to need, because aubergine will shrink in the oven. And then I would put them with a little bit of oil, just toss them in some oil and roast them. But you don't want to cook them too much because they might just get a bit too soft. But you could also make sure that you still have the skin on. So when you're putting the skewer through the aubergine, you make sure it goes through the skin, because the skin will hold everything together, and it will make sure that aubergine eggplant doesn't fall off the skewers. Yeah? Okay. And Colleen says, oh, meatballs. Good. Yes. And Justine says, how have you already got my address? Because you've like placed 2 orders with me. So how did I know where to send your apron? It's not like I'm psychic or a stalker or anything like that. You ordered stuff from the school. So Khan said, can we have vegan pizza week soon? That's a really, really great idea. I need pizza. I do need pizza. I think I might end up making that tonight, actually. Justine said, with the SCOBY, to put it in a small jar and wrap it very, very, very well in bubble wrap. Okay, right, I'll do that. And Sue says, unrelated, making coleslaw this afternoon. So fresh garlic or garlic powder, no granules. So I would say it really depends on if you're okay with that raw garlic taste a few hours later. So I am not at all, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this issue. If I have raw onion or raw garlic, then even the next day I'd still get this like stale garlic or onion flavour coming to the back of my throat, and it's really, really gross, really, really gross. So if you don't get that, then don't worry, you can use fresh garlic, absolutely no problem at all. So yeah, and or you can use a bit of the garlic powder as well, yeah. But it is, yeah, it's really, really up to you and whether you have that horrible effect or not. Okay, so Elizabeth, I don't know whether you have commented before, but we have brought you out of your shell because we commented on vegan pizza. So that's the way to do it then. That's the way to do it. And Paul said, I joined late today. Apologies, as I think that will be the case this week. Don't worry, don't worry. We are all starting to get back to doing these things that we used to do. So we're not necessarily as available as we were 8 weeks ago. Okay, so Annie, you're ahead of the game and already on it. Denise says, can we try cooking with polenta and lentils? Yeah, that's a great idea. I've got both of those in my cupboard. So definitely. But guys, please, 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 if you have any suggestions, please go into the community hub, and there is a pinned comment right at the top for your suggestions of what we can make, recipes, or ingredients that you want us to cook with or stuff like that. So please do go and pop the suggestions there, because I have a rubbish memory. Okay, I have a really, really rubbish memory. Colleen said I just roasted 5 bulbs of garlic in my air fryer. Of course, yes, you can't eat raw garlic either. Yeah, okay. And Justine said the pizza guys need to make a comeback. Yes, absolutely. So they have said yes, but we have the problem that lunchtime is their busiest time, but they said that they'll work around it. So how lovely is that? I have no idea how they're going to do that, but they said that they will work around it. So let's see. Justine said, and I didn't mean to say you're a stalker. I know, but I'm just kidding. You know what I'm like. Let me just see. Okay, right. Let me see what is happening in the oven, and then I'll bring over the pan. See how it's doing. Whoa. Okay, guys. So bring you to the overhead cam so that you can see properly. There we go. So they're doing really, really well. They're stuck to the bottom of the pan. So rather than peeling them off, so if we peeled them off, then what would happen is we would lose any crusty bit on the bottom, and we don't want to lose the crusty bit. The crusty bit's good. So I'm using my, trying not to get my arm right in the way of the camera, but it's kind of difficult. I'm using my very straight spatula, which I absolutely love, from a charity shop, because you can't really, it's quite difficult to find them so straight. So when I saw this one, I got very excited. I mean, it must have cost me about 50p, something like that, but it's great. So just jimmying them off the bottom, and then we can turn them over. And so if you want to, now is a great time to put more marinade on them if you want to. I don't think I have to because my marinade was already quite thick. And so we can just pop them back in the oven just to crisp up. I mean, to be honest, like, these are all cooked already, nothing's raw here, apart from the garlic, of course. So it's not like we're really having to cook them for a long time. The purpose of cooking these at this point is really that we want these to be crispy. We want our tofu to be to crisp up, and the fact that we have added oil to that initial marinade should mean that the tofu can actually get quite nice and crispy. Okay, so we'll pop those in for another 10 minutes, and then they shall be done. Well, actually, I'd probably check them after around 5 minutes. I would check them around 5 minutes. Right, there we go. That's it for today, guys. So I'm going to leave it there with you because you've already had a good look at what our satay skewers look like, and at the very end, this is what you will get. As I said, you can either finely chop some spring onions and scatter those on top if you want to. I don't have any spring onions today, so I'm going to use sesame seeds instead. If you guys want to, you can toast your sesame seeds too. That's always a lovely thing to add to any dish like this. Toasted sesame seeds are just absolutely divine, really, really divine, and it will just make the dish look a bit prettier. It will, because it tastes lovely. It tastes lovely, but you do need a scattering of something just to make it look, a bit more appealing. Okay, so let me just see if I've got any more questions. Colleen said, I wonder if I can make the skews in my air fryer. That's a really, really good idea. So please do let me know how you get along with that, because I would really, really like to know. Right, okay. So Khan is suggesting a video meeting. Yeah, that would be a great idea. That would be a really, really lovely idea. We did have a little one. We did have a little micro meeting before, but we can definitely do that again. And George says, is this a place where a silicone baking sheet would mean they won't stick to the pan? Okay, well actually, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because there are some times when we want the food to be on a metal surface. Okay, because metal will conduct heat really, really well. And of course, the silicone also conducts heat. That's what it is there for. It doesn't stop heat, but it can't get to as high a temperature as the pan can. So there are certain instances where I wouldn't use baking parchment, I wouldn't use a baking sheet, I wouldn't use anything. I want the food to hit that searing heat. Okay, and so the instances are when we're making tofu with this recipe, with the satay, when I'm just baking tofu. So right at the very beginning, I did a class on tofu and how to make it taste really nice, and I introduced people to baking tofu, which will get you it's a much easier result than frying tofu. But I would never put a baking sheet underneath it, because I want that really, really, really strong heat. And same for when I'm roasting vegetables. I want that searing heat to kind of like char the vegetables and have that effect on them. So we don't use a baking sheet or baking parchment or silicone mat or anything like that. And so if there are occasions where I've had clients who don't want me to fry things in oil, so say for example like fritters or burgers or something like that, but in order to get that browning, that Maillard reaction, which we always want to try to get when we make food, because it makes us think that it's yummy, then I would put a brush of oil, just a real like quick brush of oil, or indeed I would brush the pan that they were going onto, the baking tray, and pop them into the oven on a very, very high heat, and it would mimic frying. Them in a pan. But again, we need that food to be touching the bottom of the pan, the baking tray, the metal that is going to be as hot as we can possibly get it. So so there are times when I use a baking sheet, baking parchment, or silicone mat, and then there are these times when I wouldn't, because you've seen what I just did where I jimmied them up, right? Imagine doing that with like baking paper, would obviously kind of like rip. So and Jenny says, any tips for freezing mushrooms? Okay, so when you freeze mushrooms, they need to be in one layer. So freeze them in one layer, and then once they're frozen, you can bag them up. So yeah, that's the only thing that you really need to do. But yeah, they freeze really, really, really well. And then once you get to the point where you want to use them, then you can just take them out and let them defrost just on the counter for a couple of hours, and then you can use them. If you're worried about them going a bit soggy, then you could just use them in something like a risotto. You won't notice any difference at all. Okay. So, George says, thank you. I'm really learning a lot from you, Chef. Like, good. I want you all to learn, like, loads. So when people ask you questions about vegan food, you're just like, yeah, I know the answer. You're going to be like vegan cooking ninjas. Okay, that's the plan. I actually feel like my skewers might be done. So let's just see if we can have a quick squiz. Hey, there we go. Done. And by the way, when I say have a quick squiz, it's such an English thing to say. It means have a quick look. There we go. So just, yeah, there we go. They're not even, oh, this is going to be hot, isn't it? Okay. Right, there we go, guys. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Gonna get in my tummy. Definitely, definitely. So as, you know, put those onto a plate, and as you can see, you know, they're brown, not too pretty. Pop some of those sesame seeds over the top of it. Job's good. There we go. Lunch. Lunch is served. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me once again here in my kitchen. As I said, we will continue to do this until the 2nd of July. That will be our 100th show in a row. And then we're going to take a little break, a little intermission for just under a week. And then we're back on the 9th when we will start doing our regular shows, which will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as usual at midday UK time. So in the meantime, guys, please do have a wonderful day.